Arirang News, I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. To the relief of commuters, the wheels on the bus are going round and round in South Korea today after a nationwide bus strike is averted. This as most regions reach a pay and benefits agreement with bus drivers' unions. More doom and gloom for job seekers here in South Korea. The nation's unemployment rate rose to 4.4% last month, up 0.3 percentage points on year. The number of newly added jobs last month also was below 200,000. Plus today, May 15th, is National Teachers' Day here in South Korea, a day for people of all ages to show their teachers how much they appreciate their hard work and dedication. So let's start with that threatened bus strike here in South Korea that has been averted after marathon talks that went through the night. A mass walkout of drivers would have caused commuting chaos today, so people heading to work this morning did breathe a big sigh of relief. Bus drivers had been demanding higher wages and better working conditions and pretty much got what they were asking for. Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
Major bus unions across South Korea, including those in Seoul, reached a deal with management, most of them overnight after heated, hours-long negotiations that started on Tuesday afternoon. They agreed to a salary hike of 3.6% for drivers and to gradually extend the retirement age by 2 years from 61 to 63. Bus unions in most regions, including Busan, Incheon, Chungcheongdo Province, and Jeollado Province, reached a deal either overnight or a day earlier. Those based in Gyeonggi-do Province couldn't completely reach a deal, but decided to delay the strike until the end of May, while continuing dialogue with management. Just a day earlier, the Transport Ministry announced that the government will increase bus fares by 200 Korean won, or about 17 cents, starting with routes in Gyeonggi-do Province sometime in September. The government will also implement a semi-public bus management system, which means the buses will be managed partially by the government. The bus unions had been demanding a wage hike for drivers and more support from the government, claiming they will be paid less if work hours decrease due to the mandatory 52-hour work week system. The government cut the maximum work hours from 68 to 52 per week last year, and companies with more than 300 employees must abide by the rule. Bus companies were granted a 1-year grace period, which expires in July. While most of the drivers' concerns are likely to be lifted as they were granted a wage hike, an extra burden on the public, especially those in the lower income brackets, seems inevitable as bus fares will go up in many cities. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, Seoul's finance chief says the biohealth sector, along with the current ICT and medical personnel, can be South Korea's next promising sector following the success of the nation's semiconductor industry. Chairing a meeting aimed at revitalizing the economy on Wednesday, Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said the government will soon lay out a comprehensive innovation plan focused on R&D and support for deregulation. He said the biohealth industry is a promising one that grows 5.4% a year on average and is predicted to reach a global market size of up to $10 trillion by 2022. The number of employed people here in South Korea reached 27 million in April. That is an on-year increase of 171,000. Statistics Korea said Wednesday this is the first time in 3 months that the increase has been below the 200,000 mark, though. South Korea's health and technology services sectors accounted for most of the job gains, but the number of retail and manufacturing jobs, they went down. The country's unemployment rate rose to 4.4% last month. That's up 0.3 percentage points on year. This is a record high for the month of April since the year 2000. Further hikes to the minimum wage are likely to hinder South Korea's economic growth by slowing down short-term employment. This is according to the International Monetary Fund's assessment that was released this week. The report cited sluggish global trade, especially in semiconductors, as well as the country's slowing employment growth as factors that threaten the economy. It noted the sharp increases in the minimum wage of 16.4% in 2018 and 10.9% this year have likely hurt the employment prospects of low-skilled workers. The IMF report advised against initiating another steep hike to the minimum wage and said that next year's increase should be below the labour productivity growth rate. Now, South Korea is celebrating its 38th National Teachers' Day today, the day which marks the birthday of King Sejong, the creator of the Korean language Hangul, has been observed annually as a day to express gratitude and respect for teachers in the country since 1965. The Education Ministry will hold a special event at the Government Convention Centre in Sejong City in under an hour's time. Education Minister Yoon Hae will award nearly 3,000 teachers for their outstanding support and guidance to students. To mark the occasion as well, some 700 elementary, middle and high schools out of nearly 12,000 schools nationwide have closed for the day. Other schools have seen students handing red carnations to their teachers as a sign of appreciation. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was in Sochi on Tuesday for talks with his Russian counterpart, along with other Russian officials, as the two sides look to improve their rather strained relations. The two sides also discussed arms control and, naturally, the situation here on the Korean Peninsula. Lee Seung-jae reports.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and other Russian officials in Sochi on Tuesday. Prior to the meeting, Pompeo made it clear that the Trump administration is committed to improving the Washington-Moscow relations. The two sides reportedly held talks for about 3 hours. Arms control was the main focus of their talks, but North Korea issues also came up. According to Russia's top diplomat, the focus on North Korea should not be solely on the denuclearization of the regime only, but the peninsula as a whole. Lavrov said Pyongyang expects a security guarantee from the U.S. in return for denuclearization measures, an issue the leaders of North Korea and Russia discussed in Vladivostok last month. However, Pompeo emphasized the need to maintain sanctions on North Korea. Despite their differences, Lavrov said Russia will continue to promote dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang. Aside from Korean Peninsula issues, Moscow wants to know how Washington plans to resolve the current tension with Iran, which Lavrov says the U.S. created on its own. Pompeo responded by saying the U.S. is not seeking conflict with Iran, but would respond if its interests were attacked. Meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin later in the day, Pompeo was told by Putin that Moscow is keen to improve ties with Washington. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The United States has deployed a reconnaissance plane over Seoul and its surrounding regions following North Korea's recent test firing of some short-range missiles. According to the private aviation tracker Aircraft Spots, this is the third time the plane, the RC-135W, was detected in the skies above Seoul in the past week alone. While the deployment may be part of the U.S. military's usual operations, experts speculate it's aimed at preparing for possible additional military activities by the regime. North Korea has denied the existence of political prison camps and forced labor in the country. North Korean diplomats claim there's no such thing as a political prisoner or a political prison camp in the criminal law and the criminal procedure law of the North. They were defending Kim Jong-un against over 200 accusations during the Universal Periodic Review, a questioning session that takes place every 5 years at the UN Human Rights Council. Other members of the UN wrote in a report released on Tuesday that they will, quote, note the warnings on the regime's claims instead of using the word accept, which diplomatically translates to a rejection of North Korea's claims. South Korean pharmaceuticals will be exempt from certain paperwork when exporting pharmaceutical ingredients and products to the European Union. This comes as the country has made it onto the list of non-EU countries that meet the trading bloc's pharmaceutical quality standards, which are very high. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
South Korea has been added to the EU drug whitelist, a move that's expected to boost the country's exports of pharmaceutical ingredients and products. The decision was reached by the European Council on Tuesday, about 4 years after Seoul applied in early 2015. It certifies that South Korea's medicine-related manufacturing and supervision standards comply with those of the EU. Such a move is expected to streamline the process for the Korean pharmaceutical industry to access the EU market, which accounts for 31% of South Korea's pharmaceutical exports. Seoul's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety forecasts it will save up to 4 months in the export process. The ministry says it will strengthen global cooperation to expand entry into the global market based on the high quality of South Korea's medical goods and participate proactively in international exchanges. South Korea becomes the 7th country to get on the whitelist, following other nations including the US, Japan, Brazil, and Australia. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the tension between the world's two biggest economies looks unlikely to reduce too much in the near future, as US President Donald Trump is continuing to beat the same drum, essentially thinking that it's good for him politically at home ahead of next year's 2020 US presidential election. For more on this and other news from around the world, we are going to connect, as we always do, to our Hong Yu. So tell us more about Trump's latest moves in regards to trade with China.
Well, Mark, the Trump administration is preparing a new list of $300 billion worth of Chinese imports that would be hit with tariff of up to 25%. But Trump says trade talks with China have not collapsed and called the escalating U.S.-China tariff war a little squabble. President Trump showed a confidence in getting a good deal for the U.S. as he tweeted, quote, China will be pumping money into their system and probably reducing interest rates as always in order to make up for the business they are and will be losing.
We have a very good dialogue. We have a dialogue going. It'll always continue. But we made a deal with China. It was a deal that was a very good deal. It had to be a good deal, otherwise we're not making it. Because we've been down so low in trade, and other presidents should have done this a long time ago. We can't.
President Trump made this remark to reporters at the White House on Tuesday. Although negotiations toward resolving the U.S.-China trade war stalled last week, Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping could resume the talks when they meet at a G20 summit in Japan in late June. Some economists expect Washington and Beijing will eventually reach a trade agreement, as their economies are deeply intertwined in ways that make the intensifying trade war unsustainable. But some worry the damage to their relationship may be hard to undo. About 50 million people worldwide currently suffer from dementia, and that number is expected to triple by 2050, according to the World Health Organization. The world's population is aging, and factors that cause dementia, such as inactivity, alcohol and drug use, and obesity, are on the rise. The WHO released its first guidelines for reducing risk for dementia through interventions such as increasing physical activity, reducing alcohol and tobacco use, and weight management. The global cost of caring for dementia patients is projected to reach $2 trillion annually by 2030. The 72nd edition of the Cannes Film Festival opened on Tuesday with Jim Jarmusch's zombie extravaganza, The Dead Don't Die. 21 films will be competing for the top prize, including South Korean film Parasite. The film, directed by Bong Joon-ho, features two ordinary families in different situations. The festival's jury this year is made up of 4 women and 4 men, the first time both genders have been represented equally on the jury. The winner of the Palme d'Or will be announced at the closing ceremony on May 25th.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that we truly hope will be useful for your everyday life if you're watching us in Korea or somewhere else around the world. Today we're going to focus on a more Korea-centric issue, namely the growing market trend here in Korea. It's called untact marketing, although it is available in other countries as well. I'm happy to say we have our business correspondent Kim Hae-sung in the studio with us today. So Hae-sung, please explain to us what exactly untact marketing is and what are some of the services associated with it.
So untact marketing, untact is a combination of un plus tact, which refers to contact. So basically no contact. It's a kind of marketing services that avoids people-to-people, face-to-face contact between the seller and buyer.
Yes.
So some of the examples include Amazon Go convenience stores, which opened last year in Seattle, or like movie theaters or fast food chains that have kiosk machines. Kiosk machines are like standing machines where people can just pick the goods and pay it with their credit cards.
Basically, in every cinema now, there's a kiosk machine.
Exactly.
I don't think they even have a place where you can buy tickets off a human being.
They do have human beings at a couple stores,
Right.
but yeah, kiosk machines are growing.
Yeah.
And this whole untact marketing services, you see a whole expansion of that across all retail sectors in Korea. Take a look at the footage we're showing. So this is a ramen store near a university campus that uses a kiosk machine. Customers can select from more than a dozen main dishes on the kiosk machine, pay the bill, and get their dish in less than 5 minutes. One ramen costs about $3. I was actually really surprised by the ingredients marked. All healthy, looks tasty, and only 2 chefs run the store.
So did you try some?
I didn't have time to try some.
Okay, well, it looks good.
Yeah, and for the sellers, kiosk machine can help reduce labor costs, especially with minimum wage up double digits in the last 2 years. And it's not just Amazon. Korean convenience stores have also opened a couple cashier-less convenience stores over the past year, though quite a few are still in pilot process.
Technological advances, including big data and AI, have given birth to smart retail and smart consumers, enabling new services like self-payment and automatization. Now we can have one or no employees at the store, and the employee can spend time on other management activities, like product display or promotion.
So we can see by what the expert says there that this is good for business owners as it reduces labour costs, which are going up, like you say. The minimum wage is going up very quickly here in South Korea, and also increases efficiency. But what about consumers? Why is it proving so popular with consumers here in South Korea?
This has to do with changing consumer habits. So the so-called millennials, those in their teens and 20s, they actually prefer messaging or like buying things via phones, smartphones, rather than talking to an actual person like a sales assistant.
Yeah.
So according to a research survey by Daehangnae Research Institute, 1 out of 4 Koreans in their 20s actually prefer messenger chats to face-to-face interactions.
Consumers these days, young people, the so-called mobile generation, rely heavily on smartphones. They are more individualistic and want speed and fast transactions, eating alone, drinking alone, and shopping alone, instead of people-to-people services. This is a global trend, and retailers are weighing in with the new untact marketing services.
And when it comes to shopping, young people, they already know what they want to buy because they look at product information online or through reviews, so they don't have to go to the store and then talk to an actual person like a sales assistant.
Yeah.
And now let's take a look at the cosmetic store I found. It's called a self-store. It looks like any other cosmetic store, but customers can shop for goods by themselves. Product information pops up on a screen once you take the product off the shelf. So you can also buy goods by paying yourself, putting it in a bag like that, which automatically scans the barcode.
In most stores, sales assistants usually follow me around, asking me what I want. It makes me a little uncomfortable, but in self-stores, I don't have to feel pressure to buy a product that the sales assistant recommends. I can just look for goods I had in mind myself, try them on for myself, and see what really suits me.
Well, I have to agree with that young lady there. That's something I noticed when I came to Korea, that the shop assistants really do follow you around like a shadow when you go in the shops. So that's interesting. So there are no sales assistants in these stores then, some of them, these are untact stores. So how exactly do they go about opening and closing?
So this self-store, there is one assistant, so it's less than the usual 3. And if customers want help, they can press a bell. Can we show the footage? They can press the bell, and then an employee who is in a small room behind the corner will come to help. Like that.
Yeah.
And then now there's a 24-hour open retail store. So there's a jeans store I found that has no employee at all. It looks like it's closed, but you can go in, open the door with your own credit card, which verifies who you are. And then you can just freely look around, try on the clothes, and then buy it to go, or choose a delivery service, which will send it to your home or anywhere you want.
Open 24 hours, people can come to shop anytime they want. Located in Hongdae, visitors come after work or a drink. They can also choose a pair of jeans and get it delivered the very next day. No need to carry it around. Since opening last October, sales have continued to double on month.
Wow, so he's doing extremely well then if his sales are going up that quickly, and the store looks very interesting and futuristic.
It is futuristic, yeah.
Like something you'd imagine in 25 years' time or something like that. But it is very interesting, a 24-hour store when you can buy jeans, and presumably this is going to spread to all different types of clothes very, very soon. That being said, I must say, coming from England, where we do have a big problem with this, it kind of sounds like a shoplifter's paradise, doesn't it? If there's no one in the store with you.
But as of now, yes, but there have been no accidents of like stealing or anything like that.
That's good.
And at the store, there are actually a couple CCTV cameras there. And the store owner says if someone steals it, they can look for the personal data on the credit card to notify the police to hopefully track him or her down.
Yeah, so like you say, you can only get into the store if you swipe your credit card, so they'll know who you are and they'll be able to track you very easily. So that probably stamps out the problem of anyone trying to steal anything, unless they are a little bit silly. But you really do see a growing number of these unmanned, untact services these days. Like I say, you go to the cinema, you can buy a ticket from a machine, you pick up your ticket from the machine, you get all these kiosk machines in cafes, and also stretching back a couple of years now, you've been able to check in for flights using these kiosk machines. So it really is growing and growing.
Yeah, but I do want to note that as with any new technology, there is a problem with this untact marketing services, because as we saw, it's going to cut the number of jobs, and it also creates this so-called untact divide, where people who are used to new technology, they're like the teens or 20s, and who do not want people-to-people contact, it really gives them free time and it helps increase efficiency. But for those like the elderly who are not really familiar with new technology or kiosk machines, it's going to leave them out, like banking services. So the elderly, they would prefer going to the banks rather than using online banking services or mobile payments. So that is a problem that we might see in the near future.
Well, I guess you should classify me as elderly, as I still go to the bank. I rarely use online banking. But I guess, yes, there's pros and cons with everything, and eventually it will all work itself out. We hope people still have jobs and this new technology will come in. Thank you very much, Hae-sung, for your report today.
My pleasure.
It's going to feel more like July today as warm and mostly sunny conditions continue, and southern Indian regions could see some passing showers with thunder and lightning in the afternoon. Meanwhile, those of us in central western areas are likely to deal with polluted air this morning and tonight. And also with unbroken dry conditions, the weather agency issued a drought watch for many of central regions, including here in the capital. Now, usually the capital gets a bit over 100 millimeters of rain during month of May, but so far, 0. It's a similar situation for many central parts of the country, giving farmers a headache. However, we do have rain in the forecast next Monday across much of the country. Hopefully that will ease the dryness, while the warming trend will persist through the weekend. And that's all the weather update for now.
너무 가난한 탓으로 진학을 못하고 항상 그것이 엉어리가 돼서 마음에 언제 저런 사람들처럼 학교를 한번 다녀봤으면.
처음에 입학하기 전에는 걱정도 했었는데 그래도 선생님들이 많이 도와주셔서 그런 부분은 잘 넘기고 있네요.
저 나이, 저 연세에 저렇게 열심히 공부를 하시는구나. 그래서 보고 배우는 것도 굉장히 많은 것 같아요.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Teachers' Day here in Korea. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV, and a reminder, our next newscast is at noon Korea time. That's with Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.